Ethan Walker was just an ordinary man. He lived in New York City, worked at a small repair shop, and liked quiet evenings with coffee and music. He wasn't rich, famous, or powerful. He was just normal. But that normal life was about to change, forever. And it all started with one simple choice, one kind act, one moment on a busy street. It was a cold Tuesday afternoon. People rushed by in thick coats, looking at their phones, ignoring the world around them. The city moved like a machine, fast and uncaring. Ethan stood at the crosswalk, waiting for the light to change, holding a bag of groceries in one hand. Suddenly, from the corner of his eye, he saw something strange. A figure was limping down the sidewalk. Tall, thin, wearing a long dark robe that dragged on the ground. The hood covered the face. But the way it moved, slow and shaky, caught Ethan's attention. Most people stepped around the figure. Some gave dirty looks, others just didn't care. But then Ethan saw it. One of the figure's hands was bleeding, not red blood, blue. He blinked, confused. Must be some kind of paint or costume, he thought. But the figure collapsed right there on the edge of the sidewalk, groaning softly. People still walked past. No one stopped. No one helped. Ethan didn't think. He dropped his bag and ran over. "Hey, are you okay?" he asked, kneeling beside the figure. The hood shifted slightly, and for a moment Ethan saw a glimpse of the face beneath. It wasn't human. Smooth silver skin, glowing yellow eyes, and markings like tattoos across the cheek. Definitely not human. Ethan's heart raced. His mind screamed, "Run!" But he didn't. He took the alien's hand gently. "I got you," he whispered. "You're safe." The alien looked into his eyes, then spoke in a soft, musical language Ethan couldn't understand. The words echoed inside his head like a song. Then, the alien raised its hand and touched Ethan's forehead. A burning light flashed, and just like that, vanished, gone. No sound, no warning, just disappeared into thin air. Ethan fell back, shocked. People looked now, some pointing at him, others whispering. But no one had seen the alien. Only him. The blue blood was gone too. Even his bag of groceries had rolled away across the street. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. He kept hearing the alien's voice in his dreams. He saw stars, temples, and a planet with 3 moons. Then he woke up in the middle of the night, sweating, gasping. That's when he saw it. A glowing mark on his right forearm. It looked like a symbol, like a ring of light with lines inside. It pulsed slowly, like it was alive. He tried washing it. Nothing happened. It wasn't paint or ink. It was under his skin. His phone began to flicker. The lights in his apartment blinked for a second, then returned to normal. He looked around nervously, heart pounding. "What did that alien do to me?" he whispered. Then came the knock at the window. Not the door. The window. He turned slowly, and what he saw made him freeze. Outside his 3rd-floor window were 2 tall beings floating in the air. They were glowing faintly, their skin pale, blue, wearing silver armor with strange symbols. One of them raised a hand and the window slid open without being touched. "Ethan Walker," the taller one said, voice echoing inside his head. "You have helped one of sacred blood." "You have been chosen?" Ethan backed away, shaking. "Chosen for what?" The second being stepped forward, eyes glowing like stars. "To fulfill a prophecy long written in the stars. To face trials that no human has ever faced. To save a world that is not your own." Ethan laughed nervously. "No, you've got the wrong guy. I fix TVs and microwaves." But the beings only stared at him silently. Then the room filled with light, warm and golden. Ethan tried to shield his eyes, but everything faded. And when he opened them again, he was no longer in New York. Ethan opened his eyes to a sky he had never seen before. 3 moons floated high above him, 1 silver, 1 green, and 1 red. The air was warm and smelled like a mix of flowers and metal. Strange birds with glowing wings flew across the horizon. He was lying on soft grass, but the grass was purple, and the trees nearby looked like tall crystals, shining in the moonlight. He sat up slowly, confused, dizzy, and scared. The last thing he remembered was the glowing light in his room. Now he was somewhere else, somewhere not Earth. He stood up and looked around. Ahead of him stood a massive gate made of stone and light, guarded by tall alien beings in silver robes. They didn't speak, but as Ethan approached, the gate opened silently. He walked through, his legs shaking. Inside was a giant city, but not like any human city. The buildings floated in the air, connected by glowing bridges. Creatures of all shapes and colors moved peacefully, talking in soft musical tones. Some looked like insects, others like floating orbs, and a few like tall, glowing plants. But when they saw Ethan, they all stopped. They turned and stared. Some gasped, others knelt. Ethan felt small, like a bug under a microscope. A voice echoed through the air, loud and soft at the same time. "Bring the chosen one to the Hall of Light." Two tall beings stepped forward, different from the rest. They wore armor made of starlight and carried staffs that hummed with energy. Their eyes were deep silver and their skin shimmered like the surface of a lake. They bowed slightly, then gestured for Ethan to follow. He didn't know why, but his feet moved on their own as if something inside him trusted them. They walked in silence, passing through glowing streets and floating bridges. Finally, they reached a huge temple made of glass and stone. It looked like it touched the sky, with a light at the top that pulsed like a heartbeat. Inside, hundreds of aliens stood in rows. Waiting silently, at the center stood a floating platform, and above it a large glowing crystal. The two beings guided Ethan onto the platform. Once he stood in place, the crystal glowed brighter and a deep hum filled the air. A voice came from the crystal, ancient and full of power. "Ethan Walker, you helped one of sacred blood. You are now marked by the light of worthiness." Ethan took a step back. "Wait, what does that mean? I don't understand any of this." An elder being floated forward, their body wrapped in layers of silver cloth. They had no face, only light under the hood. "You helped the High Priestess of Ailara," the elder said gently. "She was hurt, weak, and fading. But you did not walk away. She marked you with her final blessing," said another voice. "That mark chose you as the one who may fulfill the prophecy." Ethan looked down at his glowing arm. "This thing? I didn't ask for it. I was just helping someone cross the street." The hall fell silent. Then the elder spoke again, voice like wind through trees. "True worth is not chosen. It reveals itself. The trials will begin soon. If you pass, you shall become the beacon of balance between worlds. If you fail, the darkness will return." Ethan frowned. "Darkness? Trials? Look, I'm not a hero. I don't fight monsters, I fix toasters." But before anyone could answer, a loud sound shook the temple, the ground trembled, and a crack appeared on one of the crystal walls. Suddenly, a group of armored aliens burst in through the side gates. They wore red armor with sharp weapons and cold eyes. One of them pointed at Ethan, shouting in a strange tongue, "False chosen! He is not one of us." Chaos followed. The peaceful crowd began to panic, some trying to flee, others standing to defend. The elder shouted, "Protect the chosen one." The two guards who had brought Ethan stepped in front of him, their staffs glowing bright. A short battle broke out, lights flashing, weapons clashing, sounds echoing. But within seconds, the attackers were pushed back and captured. Still, the damage was done. Ethan's presence had caused a storm. Later, in a quiet chamber inside the temple, Ethan sat alone. He looked at his glowing arm, confused, scared and tired. He had only helped a stranger on the street. Now he was in a world of aliens, prophecy, and danger. A door opened slowly, and the elder entered once more. "You are not here by chance," the elder said. "You are part of something greater. You will soon face the first trial. It will not test your strength. It will test your mind." Ethan closed his eyes and sighed. "I didn't ask for any of this," he whispered. But deep inside, something answered back. "You didn't ask. But you didn't walk away either." The morning on Ailara was quiet, but Ethan's heart was not. He stood at the edge of a strange doorway, glowing with blue light. This was the entrance to the trial of mind, his first challenge as the chosen one, and he didn't even know what to expect. "This test is not of the body," said the elder beside him. "It is of the mind and soul. Face your truth or fall to your fear." Ethan looked at the elder, confused and afraid. "I don't have magic powers," he said. "I don't have training or strength or knowledge of your world. I'm just a guy from Earth." The elder's voice was soft but firm. "And yet the high priestess chose you. That means your heart holds more than you know." Ethan took a deep breath and stepped into the glowing doorway. Everything went dark. No sound, no wind, no light. Then a voice whispered inside his head, "Welcome, Ethan Walker. This is your mind, your truth, your fear. Survive it and awaken." Suddenly, he stood in his childhood home. It looked exactly the same. The small couch, the broken TV, the smell of burnt toast. But something was wrong. The walls began to stretch, melt, twist like snakes. And then he saw her, his mother. She stood there, her eyes full of sadness. "Why didn't you come back, Ethan?" she asked. "I waited every day." Ethan shook his head, tears forming. "This isn't real," he said. "She passed away 5 years ago." But her voice echoed again. "You forgot me. You moved on. You left us." He covered his ears, trying to block it out. "I didn't forget," he whispered. "I just couldn't face it." The scene changed instantly. Now he was standing in the repair shop. Sparks flew, smoke filled the air, alarms screamed. His old boss shouted, "You ruined everything. You're a failure, Ethan." Machines around him exploded. Customers pointed fingers, laughed, called him useless. His hands began to burn, covered in glowing red cracks. "I didn't mean to break anything," he cried. "I was trying to help." But no one listened. He fell to his knees, shaking. Then he heard a familiar voice, soft, musical, and calm. It was her, the alien priestess. "You helped me when no one else did," she said. "You showed kindness when others showed fear. You are not perfect, but your heart is pure." The smoke faded, the fire vanished. Now he stood in complete silence, floating in space. Below him, the planet Aelara, glowing like a blue gem. Above him, stars and galaxies shining gently. "You carry pain," said the voice, "but you also carry hope. You are not here to be perfect. You are here to try." A light formed in front of Ethan, like a doorway made of stars. His body felt lighter, his mind calmer. He stepped through the light without fear. The darkness faded away. Ethan opened his eyes. He was back in the temple, lying on a stone platform. Aliens surrounded him, whispering, watching, waiting. The elder stepped forward, holding a glowing crystal. "You have passed the trial of mind," he said. "You faced your guilt, your fear, your truth. You did not run. You did not break." Ethan sat up slowly, still shaking. "I felt like I was falling apart in there," he said. "But somehow, I held on." The crowd began to hum, a sign of respect. Some even bowed their heads. One of the council members, a tall, insect-like being, spoke. "No human has ever entered the trial. No mind has ever survived the deepest layer of guilt." "So quickly?" Ethan looked around, confused. "You mean others tried before?" The elder nodded. "But they were not chosen." As he left the temple, Ethan noticed a group watching from the shadows. One of them wore red armor, the same kind as the attackers from the day before. Their eyes glowed dark purple, filled with anger and fear. They whispered among themselves, "He passed the first trial. We cannot allow him to reach the second." Back in his chamber, Ethan sat near the window, looking at the strange stars. He touched the mark on his arm. It now glowed a little brighter. He had passed the first trial. But he knew this was just the beginning. "I didn't ask for this," he whispered. "But maybe I was meant to be here after all." Far away, deep under the temple, the shadows gathered. A voice growled in the darkness. The chosen one must fall. Ethan was finally starting to breathe again. The first trial had shaken him deeply, but he had survived. The mark on his arm glowed brighter than before, as if it approved of his courage. Aliens in the temple smiled when they passed him. Some even nodded with respect. But beneath those peaceful faces, danger was quietly rising. Far below the temple, in tunnels hidden by stone and shadow, voices whispered in secret. Dark-robed figures gathered around a flickering red flame. At the center stood General Vicor, a powerful warrior with cold eyes and scars across his face. "The human passed the first trial," he growled. "The people are starting to believe in him." A smaller alien, thin and nervous, spoke. "But the prophecy, if he truly is the chosen one." Vicor slammed his fist on the table. "The prophecy is a lie," he shouted. "No outsider will rule Elara while I still breathe." Back in the temple, Ethan sat in his new room, a chamber of smooth white stone and glowing blue walls. He had never slept in such silence before. Even the air here seemed alive, humming softly. He looked out the window at the crystal gardens glowing under the 3 moons. Everything looked peaceful, but inside, he still felt out of place. Suddenly, a knock broke the silence. The door opened slowly, and Lyra entered, the young alien girl he had seen watching him during the trial. She was small, with golden skin and wide, curious eyes. In her hands, she held a tray of food. "I thought you might be hungry," she said shyly. Ethan smiled. "Thanks, I didn't even realize I was starving." Lyra sat beside him, watching as he ate. "You're different," she said. "Not just because you're human." "You care," Ethan chuckled. "Caring gets me into trouble." Lyra tilted her head. "On Elara, it saves lives." But trouble had already begun. That night, while Ethan slept, a shadow crept into his room, silent, smooth, deadly. It moved toward his bed, a small needle, in hand glowing green with poison. Just as the shadow raised its hand, the room flashed with light. Lyra had returned to check on Ethan, and saw the intruder. She screamed loud and sharp. Ethan woke in panic, rolling out of bed as the attacker fled through a secret door in the wall. Guards rushed in, chasing the shadow, but it vanished into the darkness. Ethan sat on the floor, heart pounding. "I could have died," he whispered. Lyra was shaking, but stood strong. "You're not safe here," she said. "Not from everyone." The next morning, the council met in emergency. Some members were angry, others afraid. The elder spoke calmly. "Someone wishes to end the path of the chosen one, but the trials must continue." Ethan stood in front of them, bruised but brave. "If someone wants me gone, it means I'm doing something right. Let the second trial begin." The second trial was called the Test of Heart. Not in the mind like before, but in the real world. This time, it wasn't about illusions, it was about choice, sacrifice, and courage. The trial took place on the sacred grounds, a giant floating island above a lava field. On the far side of the island, 3 alien children were placed near a cracked bridge that hung over fire. The task was simple: save them before the bridge collapsed, but Ethan could bring only one tool: a shield, a rope, or healing dust. He had to choose, and he had to act fast. He picked the rope, ran across the shaking bridge, and reached the children. The bridge creaked, lava bubbling below. The kids were crying, scared, unable to move. Ethan tied the gay rope around them one by one and sent them across carefully. The final child slipped, but Ethan dove forward, grabbing the child just in time, burning his arm in the process. With seconds left, he jumped across the final gap, carrying the last child in his arms. The bridge behind them broke and fell into the lava. The crowd watching from above erupted in cheers. Even some who had doubted him clapped slowly, respectfully. Ethan collapsed, exhausted and burned, but smiling. "I didn't think I could do it," he whispered. The elder approached and placed a hand on Ethan's shoulder. "You didn't save them because of power," he said. "You saved them because your heart wouldn't let you walk away." Far below the temple, General Vicor watched the trial from a dark mirror. His face twisted. With rage, the people believe in him now, he hissed. But the final trial, that is where he will fall. The sun on Alara rose behind a curtain of golden clouds. Its light touched the towers of the temple and made the crystal walls glow. Birds with wings like silk glided through the air, singing soft melodies. But inside the temple, Ethan sat alone, in silence. His arm was wrapped in bandages from the second trial. His body sore, but his heart steady. He had saved the children, he had proven his courage, but the path was not over. In fact, it was about to get even harder. The council had called him to the Hall of Decision. There, the final 2 trials would be revealed. The elder greeted him. With calm eyes, "You have shown your mind is strong," he said. "You have shown your heart is brave. But now we will see if you have the soul of a warrior." Ethan swallowed hard. "I'm not a warrior," he said. "I don't know how to fight with swords or use alien weapons." The elder nodded. "A true warrior is not born with a blade in hand. They are born with a reason to protect." He explained that the next trial was different. It would not be controlled or safe. It would take place in the red sands of Valor, a place where even trained Alaran soldiers feared to go. There, Ethan would face a creature known only as the Shard Beast, a living weapon from the old wars. Locked away for centuries, now it had returned, stronger, angrier, and corrupted by shadow. The trial was simple. Survive. Ethan would be given 1 weapon of his choice and 5 minutes of preparation. The beast would not be held back. Neither would fate. As they flew toward the red sands in a crystal ship, Ethan looked out at the endless desert below. Red dunes moved like waves under the hot wind. Strange black towers rose from the sand like broken teeth. Beside him sat Lyra, who had become his closest friend on Alara. She placed something in his hand, a small charm shaped like a star. "It brings protection," she said softly. Ethan smiled, closing his fingers around it. "I'm not sure this charm will stop a monster." Lyra looked into his eyes. "Then, let it remind you who you are." They landed on a circular stone platform in the middle of the desert. The air was dry, heavy, full of heat and tension. A single staff lay on the ground, Ethan's chosen weapon. Not a sword, not a gun, just a staff made of strong crystal and wood. He stepped forward, breathing slowly. All around from a distance, members of the council watched from floating ships. Among them stood General Vicor, eyes burning with silent hatred. "This will be the end of the human," he whispered. Then the ground shook. From beneath the sand, the Shard Beast rose. Its body was made of sharp crystal and metal, glowing with red light. It had 6 legs, a tail like a blade, and eyes. Filled with rage, it let out a roar that made the sky tremble. Ethan gripped his staff tightly, heart pounding. The beast charged, moving faster than expected. He barely dodged, rolling through the sand and swinging his staff. The blow hit the creature's leg. It cracked, but didn't stop it. The beast swung its tail, hitting Ethan across the chest and sending him flying. He hit the ground hard, coughing, bleeding, but he stood back up, bruised and shaking. "I didn't come this far to give up," he said through gritted teeth. The fight continued. Ethan used the staff to block attacks, jump over claws, and strike. Weak points. He wasn't strong like the beast, but he was quick, clever, and stubborn. Every time he fell, he got back up. And with each strike, the beast slowed down. Then he remembered Lyra's charm still in his pocket. He pulled it out and threw it toward the beast's face. The charm exploded in a flash of white light, blinding the creature. Ethan leaped forward and slammed the staff deep into the glowing spot on the beast's chest. The crystal cracked, the red light flickered, and the beast collapsed with a final roar. Sinking into the sand, silence returned. Dust filled the air. Ethan fell to his knees, breathing hard. His whole body ached, but he had done it. He had survived. Cheers erupted from the floating ships. Even the council members stood in awe. But not everyone clapped. General Vicor turned and walked away, his face dark and cold. "Prepare the final trial," he said to his guards, "and make sure he never returns from it." Back on the ship, Lyra ran to Ethan and hugged him. "You did it!" she cried. Ethan smiled weakly. Yeah, he whispered, but I don't think the worst is over. The sky over Elara darkened without warning. Clouds turned black and twisted, swirling above the sacred temple. Lightning crackled in slow motion, flashing purple across the horizon. Something was wrong, deeply wrong. Ethan could feel it in his chest, a pull, a coldness, a warning from the air itself. He stood in the great hall once more, his body still bruised from the last trial. Around him the council gathered in silence, their faces heavy with fear. Even the elder, always calm and peaceful, looked uneasy. The final trial begins now, the elder said, his voice low. But this time the enemy is not outside. It is inside you. Ethan blinked, confused. Inside me? Before anyone could explain, the floor under him lit up with white light. A circle of runes glowed beneath his feet, and in an instant, he vanished from the hall. He opened his eyes to darkness, not empty, silent darkness, but alive, breathing, watching. He floated in space, but there were no stars, no planets, only shadow. Then a shape began to rise before him. It was a mirror, but not a normal one. Inside it was him, but different. The reflection stared back. Wearing black armor and glowing red eyes, it smirked and stepped out of the mirror, now standing in front of Ethan. I am you, it said with a voice like thunder. Everything you hide, everything you fear, everything you deny. Ethan stepped back, his fists clenched. You're not real, he said. The dark Ethan laughed. I'm more real than you want to admit. You think being kind makes you strong. You think helping one alien makes you special. You're weak, human, always have been. Then, it attacked faster than light. Ethan was thrown backward, spinning through the air. He landed hard, his back screaming with pain, but he stood again, raising his arms. I didn't come this far to be talked down by my own fear, he growled. The fight began. Ethan dodged and struck back, but every time he hit the shadow, it just laughed and healed. You can't beat me with fists, the shadow sneered. I live in your doubt, Ethan panted, sweating, heart pounding. He remembered the trials. Each one had taught him something. The first trial taught him to face guilt. The second showed the strength of compassion. The third proved he could rise again and again, even against monsters. And now the final trial asked something deeper, not to fight harder, but to accept. He lowered his arms, letting the staff fall to the ground. The shadow paused, confused. Ethan looked into its glowing red eyes and said, You're right. I'm scared. I make mistakes. I'm not a perfect hero. But that doesn't make me weak, the shadow screamed, shaking with rage. Don't say that, it shouted. You can't win by accepting me. I'm not trying to win, Ethan said softly. I'm trying to understand. You're part of me, and that's okay. But I get to choose who I become. The moment he said it, the shadow froze. The red glow faded from its eyes. The armor cracked and broke. Then the shadow began to dissolve, turning into light. And from that light stepped the glowing spirit of the priestess. She smiled at Ethan, her eyes kind and full of pride. You have passed the final trial, she said. You have faced your soul and chosen truth over fear. You are no longer just the chosen. You are now the warden of balance. A beam of light surrounded Ethan, lifting him gently. Symbols glowed on his skin, symbols of peace, unity, and strength. He closed his eyes, feeling power, not of war or weapons, but of harmony and clarity. He understood now. He wasn't chosen to fight, he was chosen to heal. He opened his eyes and stood once again in the temple. The council gasped at the sight of him. Ethan no longer looked tired or broken. He stood tall, his body glowing faintly, his eyes calm. Even the sky outside had cleared, as if Elara itself had taken a breath of relief. The elder bowed deeply. It is done. He has passed all trials. But behind the temple walls, General Vicor watched with rage boiling in his chest. The prophecy is fulfilled, one of his soldiers whispered. Vicor slammed his fist into the wall. Then, we break the prophecy, he growled. Let the war begin. The planet Alara was quiet. Too quiet. Birds no longer sang. Winds no longer danced across the trees. In the sky, the three moons turned red. An ancient sign. A sign of war. Ethan stood on the high balcony of the temple, staring at the horizon. Smoke rose from the outer cities, black against the golden sky. He could hear distant thunder, but it wasn't from storms. It was from ships, machines, and weapons preparing for battle. General Vicor had broken the ancient oath. He had gathered warriors, machines, and dark technology long hidden. He declared Ethan a false prophet, a foreign trick, and now his army was marching toward the temple to destroy everything. Everything the priestess had protected. Everything Ethan had earned. "You don't have to fight," said Lyra softly, standing beside him. "You've passed the trials, you've done more than anyone expected." Ethan looked at her, his eyes steady. "I didn't pass the trials to earn a title," he said. "I passed them to understand something. That doing nothing isn't an option anymore." In the Hall of Stars, the council met one last time. Panic had cracked their calm. Some wanted to flee, others to surrender. But the elder raised his hand, voice clear and strong. "Let the chosen one speak." Ethan stepped forward, dressed not in armor but in simple white robes. He carried no weapon, only a glowing crystal in his hand. "I'm not a soldier," he began, "and I'm not your savior. I'm a man who helped someone cross the street. That's all. But that small moment changed everything," he continued. "It proved kindness is not weakness. That courage can come from compassion. And if we run now, we lose more than just a city. We lose the meaning of what we fought for." His words echoed through the chamber like thunder wrapped in calm. Even the doubters lowered their eyes, shamed and silent. Then the elder placed the ancient beacon crown on Ethan's head, a circle of light, passed down by the priestess herself. "You are the true chosen one," the elder said. "Now lead us to peace or die trying." Outside the temple, Ethan stood at the front of a peaceful line of defenders, not warriors, but healers, farmers, children, and teachers, people who had seen enough war, people who now stood behind him, not because of power, but because of hope. Then the sky roared. Vicor's army appeared over the ridge, ships of black steel, beasts of war, soldiers in blood-red armor. At the front rode Vicor himself, wearing the ancient armor of conquest. In his hand was a blade made from broken stars. "Ethan Walker!" He shouted, "Step aside or be destroyed!" Ethan walked forward alone. He stopped halfway across the battlefield and raised the crystal high. It glowed brightly, sending out a wave of warm light across both armies. Soldiers on both sides paused, feeling something they hadn't felt in years' peace. Ethan's voice rang out. "This isn't your war," he said. "Not anymore. You don't have to follow hate. You can choose something else." Some soldiers lowered their weapons, uncertain. Others looked to Vicor. Confused, Vicor growled, "He lies. He bewitched you all." Suddenly, he charged forward, blade raised, fury in his eyes. Ethan didn't run, didn't fight. He stood firm, arms open. At the last second, Lyra stepped between them, holding the same charm she had once given Ethan. It flashed with pure white light, stopping Vicor mid-strike. The blade shattered. Vicor fell to his knees, screaming as the dark energy left his body. Silence fell. Then one by one, the soldiers dropped their weapons. Not out of fear, but out of understanding. The war was over before it began. Later on the temple steps, Ethan spoke to the people of Alara. "You don't need a hero from another world," he said. "You need to believe in the small things. Helping, listening, standing up even when you're afraid. That's what makes us strong, human or alien." The people cheered. The three moons glowed white once again. The planet healed slowly, the way wounds do. With time, with care. And Ethan stayed, not as a ruler, but as a friend. He helped rebuild homes, teach children, and grow peace like a garden. They called him many names, Warden, Chosen, Lightbringer, but he always smiled and said, "I'm just a guy who helped someone cross the street.